Good day, everyone. We are starting on time, and thank you for joining us on time. And for those who might have trouble joining in the Zoom webinar, actually, we also have a YouTube broadcasting, which we have the link in the notification email sending to you earlier in your email, in the email that you registered. So if any of your colleagues or your friends, etc., who has also registered for this webinar but may not be able to join, please go to the our YouTube channel. Let me type the URL here. Just a second. Yes, thank you, Casey, for uploading the URL. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So this webinar series, Scientific Publishing in the Digital Age, is brought to you by IES Research, a team that provides research publication with an engaging voice through the adaptation of the IES storyboard of Big Why, and What. My name is Iris Xu, and I'm your host for the day. So this is the first section of the webinar series, and with us today is Stephanie Dawson, CEO of ScienceOpen. Stephanie has extensive experience in academic publishing industry for both books and journals. Before joining ScienceOpen in 2013, she has worked as editor and then editorial director at the academic publisher De Gruyter. So her sharing will be probably around 30 minutes, and then we have the remaining time for the Q&A session. So please feel free to ask any questions throughout the session by simply using the Q&A option or the chat box located at the bottom center of your Zoom meeting interface. So for those who join us in the YouTube channel, you can also type in your questions in the chat string under the YouTube broadcasting, and we will pick up those questions and to be answered. Then those questions will be answered in the webinar live. So without further ado, let me move the ground to Stephanie to begin the session. Stephanie, all yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to IES Research for the invitation to present to you today. And thanks to all of you for joining this ScienceOpen webinar, Increase Your Research Impact with Better Metadata. ScienceOpen is a discovery environment with nearly 70 million records for articles, books, chapters, data sets, and more. Some of those articles have a rich set of information available, such as abstracts, references, and author affiliations. Those articles are deeply networked within our discovery environment and are viewed more often than articles that only have a very minimal set of information, let's say only author and title. Today, I would like to explain to you how this rich metadata affects the discoverability and, in the long run, the impact of your research. Whether you are a researcher, a publisher, journal editor, or university administrator, you can all play a part in creating and distributing better metadata, which can affect the discoverability and impact of the work that you do. Just to kick things off, because we really would like to understand who are we talking to today, whether a publisher, a journal editor, a researcher, we have set up a poll that we are going to, that's running right now. And you can let us know who you are so that we can get an idea of how to best meet your needs. But just as a sort of take-home message for the entire webinar, really, if people don't find your work, they will not read or cite or build upon it, which is essential both for researchers, publishers, librarians, and editors, and even interested parties that just want researchers to actually solve some of those big problems out there. So I can see that 57% of the audience here are researchers, 10% are publishers, 10% are librarians, and there's a big number of others who have joined us today. So I'm going to end the polling now. Thanks so much for your input. And then I am going to jump in to my talk. I think, did I share this results with everyone? There you go. So there's always a wide range of knowledge in the audience, and I just want to get us all on the same page. So let's start with the basic unit of discoverability, the Digital Object Identifier, or DOI. A DOI is a stable identifier that links to the article or book homepage or URL. And since these homepages and URLs tend to change over time, as publishers update their website, change platforms, or journals are bought, sold, move, go out of business. But you want to make sure if someone refers to your work that someone else a year later will still find it. With a DOI, if the article URL changes, the publisher just needs to let the DOI service know the new article URL, and all links will continue to work smoothly to take you to the article you're looking for. The institutions that manage DOIs for academic publishing are Crossref and DataCite. Crossref has more of a focus on journal articles, books. DataCite has more of a focus on data sets and other content types, but both of them have a certain amount of overlap. Just so you understand, DOIs exist everywhere in the internet. So there's special DOIs for video content, there's special DOIs for music. Those are run by different services. They function roughly the same. So the DOI, the Digital Object Identifier, is used instead of a URL, which can be more changeable. And so for academic publishing, when we talk about DOIs, we are talking about Crossref or DataCite DOIs. But just so you know that DOIs are all around us. So when a publisher deposits a DOI and the corresponding URL, they also add some information about the article that can help to identify it. This metadata about the article includes publication date, journal title, volume, issue, article title, and authors, but can also include things like abstracts, author affiliations, and ORCID IDs, references, open access license, funder name and grant number, and more. Here's an example of how that metadata looks in the machine readable form that's stored at Crossref. This metadata can be made publicly available so that services like ScienceOpen can then query a DOI. So have a DOI, go to Crossref, and ask and access the extended information about it. For both publishers and authors, this metadata is the business card for your article, if you were, and it's used by a wide range of services. Many millions of computers are accessing this metadata every day. ScienceOpen uses the Crossref metadata and DataCite as well to create and enrich an article record. We show the references with DOIs, Here we track citations. We use the abstract and keywords for search and for our similar article recommendation engine. This is an example of good metadata. For discovery environments like ScienceOpen, the most important metadata fields beyond the very basic ones like author, title, journal are specifically abstracts, references, open access license, keywords, affiliation, and funder. So those are some of the fields that I want to talk about today. So what does poor Crossref metadata look like on ScienceOpen? Here's an example with no references, no abstract, no citations, no affiliation, and no views. ScienceOpen also works with the digital science company Altmetric. Going beyond citations as the main measure of impact, Altmetric tracks online attention from a wide range of platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, blogs, news, policy documents, and patents. Altmetric also requires a DOI for their service. So in order for them to track your article online, it requires a DOI. At ScienceOpen, we use the available metadata to make a better search experience for across all of the nearly 70 million articles on our platform. Being able to filter for open access, for example, is one key feature on the platform. If you do a search virus and you want to know which of those articles you can immediately access via open access, this is an important filter for you. However, one piece of metadata that is often missing is a machine-readable open access license information tagged in the metadata. If the computer can't read it, the computer will not give your article an open access flag. We really only flag articles as open access that make that a filterable category for articles with a CC BY license tagged in the metadata. We do not try to guess if journal is open access because we saw a similar title in DOAJ, or to send a bot to try and access a PDF, only to flag something as open access, which was only freely available on that day because the paywall was down. So if an author retains the copyright and publishes their article CC BY, then that information should certainly be tagged in the article metadata and deposited with Crossref or DataCite. If your journal or your article is open access and does not have an open access symbol on ScienceOpen, get in touch and we can try to discover at what step that metadata is missing. We are really happy to provide some information or give a metadata check for publishers. We've seen everything. CC BY license printed in the PDF, for example, is not machine readable. A freely accessible PDF does not mean that computers know what they're allowed to do with an article. So one thing that I would like you to keep in mind, that a key element of discoverability is really understanding how computer readable your article is. Another example of how metadata can make a difference. The UCL library has created an automated collection on ScienceOpen to gather together research from their faculty and students on COVID-19. Articles that don't have any information in the affiliations section will not be included automatically. So if a UCL researcher writes an article and publishes that with a publisher who does not deposit that affiliation information with Crossref, ScienceOpen cannot access that information, and then that article might be missing out on a whole wealth of further usage and promotion and visibility. So always making sure that also as researchers, when you add affiliation information to your article, please be as thorough as you can. Make sure to add your department, your address, your city, country. All of that can be very interesting for services that are creating tools around affiliation. Probably one of the most powerful pieces of metadata is the abstract to your article. We use all the words from an abstract to do matches with similar articles on the website. But we've also just looked at the content in our topical collections to see whether having an abstract is making a difference in usage. And the answer is a resounding yes. So articles with no abstracts account for 30% of the content in this Beatles collection, but for less than 7% of the views. Within a collection, top articles that are viewed more than 50 times with abstracts have 25 times more views than articles without. And top article without an abstract has 60 views, whereas the top article with an abstract has 1,400 views. In a collection of only open access articles on climate change, we saw a similar result. In this collection, it's likely that the researchers who are browsing content are more likely to click on an article with an abstract than on one that only have a title for orientation. So articles with no abstract in this case account for 10% of the content, but for less than 1% of the views. And the top article without an abstract has 93 views, as opposed to the top article with an abstract that has 2,300 views. As a publisher or journal editor, you can use the Crossref participation report to check the richness of your metadata if you are assigning Crossref DOIs. My colleague Mary could put a link potentially here to the Crossref participation report into the chat. Even as an author, you may want to check this publisher information before you decide where to publish your article. Does the publisher deposit abstracts, open references, or license URLs? These can make a real difference in how discoverable your article is across a wide range of services. And publishers like to hear from you. If you tell them that this is something that you really care about, they will listen. There are several initiatives working to encourage publishers to make metadata freely accessible. One of those is the initiative for open abstracts. In September 2020, 6.6% of all works with a Crossref DOI and 8.3% of all journal articles had abstracts available in Crossref. So there's certainly room for improvement. In orange in this list are publishers making their abstracts freely available as part of the Crossref metadata. Again, as a researcher, you may want to look at this information before you make a decision on where to publish your article. As an author, if abstracts, keywords, or links to an open data repository are missing from your article records on ScienceOpen, you can enhance the metadata with a lay summary, with a graphical abstract, and more information for better discoverability and visibility on the platform. I would strongly recommend also promoting your research on all of the other platforms that are at your disposal. For example, you can add a lay summary on Grow Kudos. You can add your abstracts to platforms like ResearchGate or Academia EDU. On your institutional repository, you can make sure that you have the richest metadata possible. But of course, none of these can really make up for excellent metadata from the publisher. So let's talk about citations, probably the most important form of currency for researchers and publishers alike. If systems have to try to compare titles, authors, and publication dates to make a best guess if a particular article is being cited without identifier like a DOI, a lot of citations can get missed. If your article, chapter, book, poster, report, or conference paper does not have a DOI, you may be missing out on valuable citations. And you can ask the question, if Google, Web of Science, Scopus, Dimensions, or ScienceOpen doesn't pick up on a citation to your work, does it exist? It's a classic question of a tree falling in the woods that no one hears. And of course, one of the best ways to get a researcher's attention with a new article or a new journal is for them to suddenly see their work cited. DOIs simply make it much easier to track citations. Here's an example from an article from Oxford University Press that includes references in the Crossref metadata. At ScienceOpen, we create article records for each of these references and make them discoverable on the platform as part of the context of this article. These can then be used themselves as a discovery tool on ScienceOpen to ask questions like, which is the most highly cited or most read on the platform, which has the highest altmetric score or is added to a collection on the platform. When the initiative for open citations, I4OC, started, only 1% of the Crossref records openly shared their reference metadata. As of January this year, it was 83%. This is an amazing achievement. It is incredibly easy, so if you're a publisher, just write an email to support@crossref.org and tell them you want your references to be open. But unfortunately, not all publishers are depositing references with Crossref, so that is also a first place to start. And you can imagine on the platform ScienceOpen, whenever we go to Crossref and query a DOI and pull in the publicly available metadata for that record, we bring in sometimes 50 references as part of that. We then look up each of those. 83% of those also have references. We then pull in those records and those records and those records. So around a single interesting topic, we can maybe pull in a cloud of 1,000 related records based on this open citation data. So you have your DOI, the persistent identifier for your article. So now people can track citations. But the next step towards better metadata is the author ID or ORCID. More and more publishers require an ORCID at the point of manuscript or submission or publication, so you may or hopefully have one already. With an ORCID, you can verify that you are the author of a particular set of articles. I have personally published a paper on Drosophila genetics and one about Goethe's Faust. I studied both biology and German literature. No artificial intelligence in the world is going to guess that those two topics are published by the same author. So it was very important to me to have a place where I can identify myself as the author of these publications, particularly particularly if you have a name that has a lot of overlap with other names. You want to make sure that you are the person getting credit for that work. On ORCID, there's a lot of interesting things you can also do. If you have a name that in Chinese characters, you can add to ORCID both your name in Chinese characters and your name in Arabic characters. So this can actually help. A lot of times names are written in different ways for different publications. You can put all of the publishing names that you have used and identify all of the papers that you are authors of to make sure that you get credit for those publications. So if you're a researcher, as I think here 57% of our audience is, if you don't have an ORCID, then that's the first thing to do after this webinar. On your ORCID profile, you can also add information such as biography, employment, education, grants, and more. And when creating your ORCID, however, Be sure to use the DOIs of your publications so that they can be verified, again, in systems such as ScienceOpen. We often see authors type in the title and date of their publications only to create errors that prevent aggregating. You can then use your ORCID profile as the basis for your research profile on a whole range of other systems such as ScienceOpen, but also ResearchGate, Academia, Impact Story, Mendeley, and more. By linking your publication list to ORCID on ScienceOpen, your ScienceOpen profile lets other users explore your articles and sort and search within your publication list by Altmetric Score, citations, article type, and more. This can be a great calling card for you as a researcher. I could talk about metadata all day, but I'm going to end here. My take-home message really is that discoverability is fundamentally is about making sure that the machines can find your work and make sense of it. Visibility is then everything that you can do on top of that to make your message more understandable to a wider community. But the real basis is to make sure that you have rich metadata attached to your persistent identifiers such as DOIs and ORCIDs to make sure that you are discoverable. So as an aggregator of information, ScienceOpen will continue to open up, share, add to, and explore the context of scholarly research in support of open knowledge goals. So join us. And now we would be very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for the sharing. And for anyone who would like to ask any questions, you may feel free to type your question in the Q&A toolbar or the chat box in the Zoom meeting. And for the YouTube participant, welcome to type in the chat room. So we will bring your questions up to the main meeting room. So Stephanie, I like your ending note on the difference between the discoverability and visibility. So you mentioned that discoverability is basically to make sure that the publication, the information and the publication can be successfully and correctly retrieved, while the visibility is to add on another layer so that these publications or research output can be reached to a wider audience. Is that the right, correct understanding?
That's definitely how I see it. So I think that what researchers can do to increase the visibility of their work by promoting it in social networks, by writing a blog post about it, by encouraging their society to promote it in a newsletter, all of that is a really important outreach. But like I said, that won't be able to be aggregated, picked up, tracked, and made sense of by systems like Altmetric, by citation systems, if that article doesn't have a DOI. So actually, the being able to have your article discoverable, findable in all of the search platforms out there is the very first step. What you do with it after that, I think, is really the visibility. So writing a lay summary and presenting that at a conference, I think, is really essential work. But you should make sure that the basics are covered.
Right. We do have a few questions coming in. So let me ask Stephanie one by one. So the first one question is regarding, in the Q&A box, is regarding keywords. So is
Mhm.
keyword considered to be included in the metadata, or they are treated separately?
Keywords is a great, that's a really important issue. On ScienceOpen, we allow researchers to add keywords to their articles. Keywords are not currently covered as part of the most of the time as part of the Crossref metadata, something that I would really like to see changed. And keywords are, however, essential for searching um, and similar article searches, etc. So one of the best things about open access is really having all of that even richer metadata available in a whole range of other platforms. So DOAJ, for example, includes keywords as part of their metadata, and that's another place where we sometimes access that. So keywords are absolutely essential. You are right.
Right. So that means when if no matter for the researcher or for the publisher, it is also very important to assign the right keyword and then submit the keyword to the publishers so that when metadata is transmitted between the aggregators and publishers, then it can be correctly indexed.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
So other questions including what is the difference between ScienceOpen.com and other aggregators or the publishers? What ScienceOpen has to offer? And as researcher or a publisher, how can we or how can they add their own articles onto ScienceOpen?
So ScienceOpen is a freely accessible discovery network. We have we have almost 70 million article and book records on the platform, and we have an interactive overlay that allows researchers to enhance the metadata on their own content and to review, share, interact with any of the articles on the site. Researchers can join ScienceOpen for free by just registering. They can link their ScienceOpen account with their ORCID account, and this will then automatically add all of their publications to ScienceOpen. But if they find records on ScienceOpen that they say, oh, that's my article, oh, I published that, they can also register on ScienceOpen, claim authorship of that article, and we will add that metadata back to ORCID for them. So we can help them also to enrich their ORCID profile as well. For publishers, most of the content coming into ScienceOpen is being added via some large open access repositories that we add every day. So the PubMed Central Open Access Data Subset, Cielo, and others. We work directly with a number of publishers to get their content added into the platform, and then we rely on the metadata that we can get from Crossref and other services. Publishers who would like to see their entire journal on ScienceOpen with a nice collection landing page and promote that content in the search and with banner marketing on the site. We offer promotional services to publishers for indexing and promoting their entire journal. And as well, we offer everything from metadata services for publishers to provide help with rich metadata at Crossref. We provide open access hosting and all the way up to full publishing solutions for publishers. So all of those services for publishers are really embedded in this discovery platform. Everything that the researchers can do are always embedded in this discovery platform. Researchers can essentially run their own overlay journals, can create collections of their research topics. So pull together all of the best research out there and make a nice landing page that they can promote. Libraries can also create as UCL did, a landing page for all of the outputs of their research institute, say everything that they've paid for in open access, for example. All of those are services that we offer, and those are really always embedded in this larger search interface that we can all share.
Right. So thank you. Another question is that will you please recap the part on open access tagging for a publisher?
Sure. So one requirement, the first step if you're publishing open access is decide what license that you would like to give to your content. We recommend the most liberal license is the Creative Commons Attribution License. The most recent is 4.0. That's called the Creative Commons CC BY. You've probably heard. There are other licenses that are more restrictive, the CC BY NC, non-commercial, or the share alike license. We don't feel like most academic articles are in danger of being printed on a coffee cup and sold. So actually having the most liberal license tells computers, like the computers at ScienceOpen, that they can access your content, that they can present it on their website, that they can always send researchers back to your version, and they always have to cite the authors. Any citation will be citing your paper, so the more usage and visibility you get, the better. The Creative Commons license there's a machine readable link. So and this there's a set of basic rules for how to tag the Creative Commons license in the XML metadata of your article. If any publishers would like to have sort of more specific information, just send me an email. I'm happy to share that with you. And to make sure that that license is deposited on an article by article basis with the DOI of your journal is very important. And if I've seen everything. So I've seen publishers actually give licenses that, basically are similar to a CC BY license. So they say open access, this and that, but they are not linking to a machine readable version that all computers. So if you use something similar, but the computer doesn't know that this is CC BY license, then we simply won't call it open access. So I think it's really important to kind of stick to the Creative Commons license suite because that will be most easily recognized by others that that's a that's an open access article.
Right. So we know that the responsibility of depositing the metadata to Crossref or the depositing the DOI register for DOI information is the responsibility of the publisher themselves, not the author, not the researcher, but the publisher. So if a publisher, let's say, would like to update their open access tag into their metadata, and which are not previously registered, then what should they do?
It's actually very easy. You can just become a member of Crossref. You can also, ScienceOpen is a sponsoring organization, so we can even work with you to get you a Crossref prefix. Then you need to have your metadata in a particular tagged format, and then you can upload that into Crossref with the DOI of your article. So if you don't have a DOI as a publisher and you would like to get one, please just get in touch after the webinar. I would be happy to look at your data, give you a metadata consultation. If you already have Crossref DOIs, but now you think, I think our license information isn't showing up. So one great thing you can do is just look for your content on ScienceOpen. Then you'll see how computers are actually reading your metadata, because we're very transparent. You know, we just take the metadata that's there and we show it on ScienceOpen. So if you think, oh, but that's an open access article, why isn't ScienceOpen showing it as open access? It's most likely that there's some issues with how you have deposited that license information, and we're happy to look at that with you. If you just maybe didn't deposit license information, let's say 2 years ago when you started your journal, it's very, very easy to go back and update those records at Crossref. So there's no charge for adding more metadata. So if you look at your Crossref records and you're like, oh dear, we could definitely update those, it's not a problem. You can easily add all of those empty fields and to Crossref. You've paid $1 for your DOI, so make the most of it. Make sure that you have as much metadata attached to that as possible.
So because today we do have some librarians joining in, and for librarians, I think some of them might have the chance to manage their institutional repository, for example. But as we know, that institutional repository is an aggregation of the research papers and articles without, whatever they get from the publisher, or the author, then they will present it in the institutional repository. So what if there is not enough data from the source data that, and how can a institutional repository in the library to enrich those data? Am I still with you, Stephanie? Or am I disconnected?
I can hear you, Iris. I think I think Stephanie's internet must have gone out.
Okay, maybe. Good. Before the meeting, Stephanie actually already warned us that she has other family members joining webinars or learning remotely online from home. So probably she will be disconnected at some point. But however, she will reconnect as soon as possible.
Yes.
So let us wait for a few minutes. So Mary, I know there are a few questions regarding the science, how to joining ScienceOpen, etc. So I think one of the questions that I have is with all these aggregators out there, what's the difference and advantage of ScienceOpen that, so that researchers or publishers would like to join the ScienceOpen service?
Yeah, I think ScienceOpen is different because we have this networking capabilities in addition to a discovery platform. So as a member of ScienceOpen, if you create an account, you not only get to upload your own publications and share research that's interesting to you, but you can also create collections of research and you can do post-publication peer review, and there's a lot of exciting things that we're working on that kind of enhance the researchers' capabilities on ScienceOpen. So it's not just like a discovery platform. We're not just indexing research, but we have this whole other side of it too for the researcher to promote their own work. So yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
Looks like Stephanie is coming back.
Yeah. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. I apologize. My network just broke down. So
okay. So let me repeat my question to you before you disconnect. So I was mentioned that for the institutional repositories in a university or in a library, because the data is depending on the source data, meaning from the publisher or from the researcher. So if the source data doesn't have enough metadata, so how would the institutional repository or how would the library administrator help to enrich those data?
I think one of the interesting things that that repository administrators can do is actually make more fields mandatory. A lot of times, publishers, a lot of times, repositories don't want to cause more work for the researchers in adding metadata. So they allow researchers to just add the most minimal amount. And so I think that that's one place where repositories can really give researchers a nudge and, you know, require ORCIDs, require or strongly encourage DOIs, make sure that people add keywords and other information to their repository records. Often a big problem for aggregators such as ScienceOpen is that there is the metadata and the data on university repositories are extremely heterogeneous. So if I try to pull together information from multiple repositories, it's really difficult because there's a lot of duplications, there's low use of persistent identifiers. So I think there is a lot of work that repositories and university libraries can do to make sure that that they really require best metadata for that repository.
Right. So basically, there are still some things that the librarians can do to enrich the metadata or enrich the services layer on top of the institutional repository.
Yeah.
Another question we have is actually I have is that to my understanding, a lot of small-scale publishers or academic publishers or even university publishers in Asia Pacific, they work with publishers like Emerald or Wiley for their publication. So the discoverability or the richness of metadata might not be an issue. However, because they are just a small brand under their huge publication portfolio of Emerald or Wiley, do you have any suggestions for them how they can do or what they can do to increase the visibility or increase the engagement with potential authors, for example?
Well, certainly on ScienceOpen, we provide landing pages for exactly such journals. They can add all of them. They can add all of the metadata into one place, make that searchable. There's an interactive overlay. They can encourage researchers to review the articles. They can create collections of related research around those articles. So that is really at its core one of the main services that ScienceOpen is offering are these kinds of nice landing pages for your content, also really regardless of who the publisher is. So we are working with the American Waterworks Association in America. They are publishing their research with Wiley, and they do have some nice journals, but as you said, they get a little bit lost on the Wiley website, on ScienceOpen, they have created their own collection landing page to promote that journal within our website. Also, those collection landing pages have very good search engine optimization. They get found on Google. It's another place where people can find your content, but we always link back to the version of record on the publisher website. So we're always just see ourselves more as a linking hub. We're not putting up full text copies of those, but really linking to the publisher version of record so that you have a good place where you can get all of the usage. You can track all of the usage for that. So that's one thing that we are really happy to do. And the other thing is, even if you are working with a large publisher, it can be the case that that publisher is doing maybe not the best job with your metadata that you might want it to. It's definitely worth checking, and it's definitely worth, if you request a couple articles on ScienceOpen and we look and see what those articles look like and they don't have abstracts, for example, this is a piece of information that you really want to get back to the publisher with, because some of them actually don't publish abstracts or don't make abstracts freely available on Crossref. You saw there's only 8.3% of the journal articles have abstracts. And the reason for that is that some of the big publishers want to sell that information. They want to sell it as part of products that they sell to libraries. So they're more interested in their own products than they are really in your small journal and your business card for each individual article. And that's something that, if you look at, certainly a discussion that you might want to start having with the publisher of your content, saying, why are these metadata fields missing?
Right. So another question is that, does ScienceOpen accept books or edited volumes apart from journals?
Yes, we do. We're super excited that we can edit, that we can add books and chapters. We have whole collections that are based only on books. So from the Huddersfield University Press, Amsterdam University Press, we have a new, and also for the UUM University Press, we have added all of their book titles to the ScienceOpen platform, and now we are helping them to get Crossref DOIs for all of those book and for all those book titles, and then chapters are maybe the next step after that. So yes, we love working with books and book metadata. It's certainly something new. So for a long time, books have used completely different discovery platforms than journals. Journals and journal articles have been using DOIs for a long time. Books have ISBNs. Books use a different format for the metadata than journal articles do. So bringing those systems together has not been that easy, and we have a lot to learn. But on our search and discovery platform, we added over 2 million books and chapters last year alone.
So if the publishers already have an account in Crossref, and they deposit the articles or book chapters with the Crossref, so does the information appear directly in ScienceOpen, or do they need to do anything to be added into ScienceOpen?
They actually need to get in touch with us. So how our platform is built is that any content that is relevant as a part of the context of an article is added automatically. So if it's cited, if it's in a reference, then we go to Crossref and we pull in that metadata. If it's content that we haven't seen before on our platform that we need to check, etc., then we charge a small content upload fee for those publishers to do this kind of metadata check, to create these nice collections for them, and to add this content to the platform. So just having a Crossref DOI doesn't mean you will be automatically added to the ScienceOpen platform. If you have a DOI and your content is cited, then you will be added to the platform. But otherwise, the most important the most important things that we do to really help get good metadata, then those are part of our service package that we work with publishers to create these nice collections.
I think there was another video question in the chat box way earlier. If it costs money, if someone would like to publish an article on ScienceOpen, I think that's what they meant.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to, I mean, we have also some publishing options, like you can publish a preprint or a poster. Those things are free. We can offer full publishing packages for publishers, depending on what kind of services people order. Then we have a range of charges, and you can discover all of that on our website, or you can get in touch and ask for a quote.
So does ScienceOpen has any specific format for an article? That is another question that just have been asked.
Specific formats. So we work mostly with the JATS DTD, so the Journal Article Tagging Suite that was developed originally from the National Medical Library, the NLM National Library of Medicine in the United States as part of PubMed. This is very much the standard for journal tagging. We also work with Dublin Core XML. So those are let's say, are the main formats that that we prefer. But we are also happy to work with more basic, PDF and XML. We do get good XML feeds. We do get good content feeds from the Open Journal system, for example. So with the UUM publishers in Malaysia, we are getting direct content from their OJS journals and adding that to the platform.
Right. I think a lot of academic publishers in Asia are using OJS. So by connecting, or by by working together with their usual tool, will be much easier and convenient for them to provide more information to ScienceOpen. So another question from the audience is that, what is the benefit for us as a publisher to be fully on ScienceOpen? So I think the question is more specifically on the discoverability rate of the ScienceOpen.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the collections on ScienceOpen, the main advantages are having your journal show up in the left-hand search menus. We have a banner on all articles that are related in topic to the sort of keyword cloud from your collection. And then we have a space on that landing page for you to explain the aims and scopes, the editorial board, the how to submit a manuscript. And then we have a nice manuscript submission button that publishers can use to connect that collection to their manuscript submission system or their instructions for authors, or so it's just a way for us to actually send potential authors directly to your journal. We do have sort of beyond the more discoverability within the ScienceOpen platform, we also have, as I said, good search engine optimization, meta tags for Google, so that and Baidu as well. So that increases again the linked nature of your content. So we can expose that in different ways. It really depends often, sort of how much of a difference that makes depends often on sort of the level of discoverability you're starting from. So if you are already at a very high level, maybe it will make a smaller difference adding your content to ScienceOpen. If you're starting out at a place where you say, okay, we don't have DOIs, we have our own website, but we're not getting the amount of traffic that we would like to have, then ScienceOpen can really be, I think, a big factor in increasing the discoverability of your content.
Right. I think that is quite a challenging to actually find out how much or how many traffic is actually brought in by a specific platform, because in the internet everything is connected. So probably it is, even if you have a traffic, let's say from Facebook, and maybe the post from Facebook is something redirect, to that channel, and then the audience see it from the Facebook and then direct to the place that you want it to be. So I think the point is, if the message can be spread as wide as possible onto as many channels as possible, then the traffic will be naturally increase. But of course, these channel, besides posting on this channel, I think for the publishers, what they still need to do is to spread the information actively so that these information can be seen from these different channels.
Exactly. I think that's the most important. We also use all social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, to promote content for all of our customers. And we also have some customers who are very, very active themselves in these social media channels. We have other customers who are not, where we carry more of that outreach in that area. But the bottom line is that all of those publishers need to do at least these basic things to have good discoverability of their content, right? So all of those publishers need to make sure that they do have a DOI, that they encourage ORCID use, that they add abstracts wherever they can, wherever they deliver metadata to. And I think that's sort of the first step that they need to take. Otherwise, if you're sharing some articles quite a bit on Facebook and there's a lot of discussion around it, but you can't track any of that with the Altmetric score, this is then a bit too bad for your authors, because otherwise they would be able to see that activity much more effectively.
Right. So due to the limitation of the time, so I think that's trying to close this webinar. But although I know there are still some outstanding questions, I think we will bring those questions offline, and let we answer them by email, because we know who asked those questions. So it is very easy for us to answer offline. Now, again, thank you very much, Stephanie, for giving us such information sharing. So as mentioned, this is the first series of the webinar, and our next series, our next topic of the webinar will be focusing on visibility. Right now, because now you have the knowledge of discoverability, how to build your metadata, and then we will be talk about more about how you can make these information seen by all readers, seen by your potential authors, and finally get the articles to be seen and eventually be cited. And more information on the next webinars will be shared to you separately, but Thank you again, Stephanie, and thank you again, all of us, to joining our webinars. And I hope you learned something from it. And after that, we will share the recordings. And if you will, Stephanie, share your contact information. I believe some of the audience would like to get connected with you. And yeah, I think thank you everyone for this wonderful webinars, and I hope to see you in our next webinar soon. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Iris.
Thank you, Stephanie and Mary. Have a
Thanks.
good day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.